Hey guys, Aiden and Aviva here, and today we are taking apart a Glock 19. After she gets a little scratchy scratch. Yeah. Like in every video that we've done so far, the first thing we're doing is checking and making sure that this firearm is unloaded before we work on it. Again, I have taken out the magazine just like all the other firearms, and I am pulling back on the slide, locking it back manually with the slide lock lever here, and I'm checking inside the chamber and the magazine well to make sure that there are no rounds in here. Now, this is very, very important with Glocks in particular because you do have to pull the trigger to release the slide off of the frame when you're actually taking this apart. So checking to make sure it's unloaded is #1 priority when dealing with a Glock, okay? So the first thing we do is we actually have to pull back on the slide at the top of the gun and actually get that slide pulled back to a certain distance so that I can then pull down on the slide release lever that is on either side of the Glock 19 frame. And I actually have to pull that down with my thumb and pointer finger to then release the slide forward. I'll show you how this works. It's quite interesting here. So what I do is I go from a normal shooter grip to this modified grip right here, okay? And you can see my 3 fingers are above and my thumb is actually wrapped down on the back side of the frame. And what I'm doing here is I'm just making this type of motion with my hand while having my thumb give a forward pressure on the frame, and that's actually gonna pull back on the slide, and you can see it here, just like so. Right? So me pulling it back this far is just enough so I can now engage the slide release lever on either side of that frame. So I'm going to pull down with my thumb and I'm going to pull down with my pointer finger just like so. I'm going to keep them held as I release that slide forward. Once that is done, I want you to look at these levers here. You can see that they're about halfway down on this gap right here. If I reset the slide, you see they go right back up to the top. So the first indication of me knowing that I did this right is if that lever stays in that halfway position. So I'll get that again. I'm gonna pull back, I'm gonna pull down on either side, release forward, and we can see that it is halfway there. Once that's done, this is where we're pulling the trigger. So thank goodness we already checked to make sure this is unloaded, but I would always double and triple check, okay? We're gonna be pulling the trigger, and the slide can then be released from the frame. Here's the frame, and here's the slide. Okay, so again, our next steps are to remove the guide rod spring, like in all other firearms there. All the ones we've done so far. Wow, that one didn't want to come out. Okay, there's the guide rod spring, and then we're gonna take the barrel out. Same thing. That's going back just like that. If you remember with that SIG 229, that is very similar. Now, remember the SIG 229 was a non-captured spring. The Glocks all have captured springs. So I don't have to worry about this one flying once I take that out. This is really nice that it all stays together. There's no worries of anything going anywhere, okay? So now that the gun's apart, I want to go into a little bit of detail with some of the parts and pieces that are actually on this gun. Now there's no sponsorships here. I'm not getting paid by anyone to say any of this stuff. I just really like these individual products from these different manufacturers. So we're going to go through some of them right now. So the slide that I have on my 19 is the Zev Dragonfly 19 slide, okay? And that comes with an RMR cut, and Zev gives you an RMR plate that goes right over that, just so later on down the road, if I ever wanted to put an RMR on there, I have that ability to do so. Now, if any of you are asking what an RMR is, it is a ruggedized miniature reflex, okay? That is a small window. It's a reflex sight that goes on the back of the slide, and you use that as your optic instead of using traditional iron sights. I have a Glock 34 that I have an RMR on there. I will have that in a future video. We'll take that apart, but I'll show you that RMR. You'll get a kick out of that. It's a very cool way to be looking down at your targets with a red dot instead of any any iron sights, okay? So that's the slide right there. Then we've got, again from Zev, we've got their Dimpled Glock 19 barrel. Now I really enjoy this one. Golf dimples, I used to be a golfer, so I get a kick out of that, seeing that there's dimples on there. But the other nice thing is they actually have crowned the barrel. And what that is you can see right at the end of the barrel here that it actually goes in a little bit where the lands and grooves are sitting inside that barrel. Now what that does, the whole purpose of that is, God forbid this gun falls nose first, right, onto the ground. Any little rock or something like that that would hit the edge of the barrel won't cave in the part where the lands and grooves are coming out at the end of that barrel. So the rifling or the spinning of the barrel as it comes out won't change the accuracy just because I dented the top end of the barrel, something like that, right? So again, I really like this barrel a lot. I'm very pleased with it so far. I've got a standard old guide rod spring that it came with the Glock 19, so no big deal there. But you can see on the frame, this looks very, very, very different from your traditional Glock 19 frame. This is a Generation 3 Glock, so normally Gen 3 Glocks have finger grooves on the front end, right? And they do not have what's called stippling. The stippling here is done by using a hot pen. And the stippling part was done by Zev there at the factory, but the shaping of this frame was done by myself and a coworker, and this is kind of a really neat thing that we got to do. We spent a lot of time on it, shaping this and kind of having it fit my hand perfectly. We've even gone as far as to making a ledge only on one side for my left thumb to rest on while shooting. You can see on the right side there's nothing there, right? Also undercut in here, what that does is that allows my middle finger on my right hand, obviously I'm using my left, but on my right hand, to go as high as possible on that gun so I get the most solid grip that I possibly can on there. So a lot of fun little bells and whistles on that frame. You can see down below I have a magazine well, also from Zev on this. This is the Zev Pro magazine well, and I really, really enjoy that. What this does, it allows me to change my magazines at a much faster rate, also without really having to look at the bottom of the frame. I know right where that magazine is going to go, and because there is a much larger opening there, I know it'll go in no problems, right? Now you can see here, I've got a flat trigger on my frame right here. This flat trigger right here is from a company called IDP Tactical. Again, not sponsored by them, just absolutely love their products, okay? This flat trigger gives me the same feel of a 1911. I love 1911s to death. So I wanted a similar feel with the trigger with a 1911, even though this is far from a 1911 itself. Also, inside the slide itself, and I just have to take this down just a little further. We'll get into a full strip down later on a Glock slide here. But this right here, this firing pin, and you can see it's in a TIN coating right here. This is also from IDP Tactical, and I got a kick out of the color, of course, but it is more of a race firing pin. It's a little bit lighter. There's some cuts inside there to lighten that up a little bit. This has been really phenomenal for the half a year that I've had it so far. It's amazing it's been that long. All right, let me just put this back real quick. This is a non sequitur. We will get into taking apart a Glock further than a normal field strip in another episode. So don't mind me here as I put everything back together. There we are. Okay. So now that we have everything apart, obviously our next step is to put everything back together. Okay. Way we do that, very similar to the SIG 229 video, right? The barrel is going to go through the top end here. It's going to go at an angle all the way through. And again, like the last one, I'm pushing straight back till it locks into place. All right, so once that's there, guide rod spring is going back in. But I want everyone to be aware of one thing here. On the barrels, on Glocks, you have two ledges, okay? This top ledge right here is not where the guide rod spring is supposed to sit. So I will show you. When it sits right here on the top ledge, you can see that I can actually move this back and forth. That is no good. What we want is, we want to make sure that the guide rod actually sits in this bottom step right in here. It's actually curved a little bit to accommodate the shape, the round shape of the back end of the guide rod itself. So once I have that pushed in right here, I'm going to push all the way and make sure it goes all the way to the bottom. You can see how it's sitting much lower in there. And when I push straight down with my thumb and finger and move side to side, it barely moves. It really kind of sits in there. There's much less movement from the original top step where it's not supposed to sit. You can see once it's really in place, it's not going anywhere. I'm shaking the whole table, I'm sorry. All right, once that's in, we are placing the slide right back on the frame itself. Now the Glock frame, the rails start very close to where the trigger is on the frame. So we're not attaching the slide on the front end of the frame at all. It's actually starting right where you see the first set of rails sitting on the frame right there. Once that goes in, that slide's going to go all the way back, and you're going to have to give it just a little bit of a kick right there. Now, at this moment, that slide is still not on yet. So what we have to do is pull back a little bit further on that slide till we hear a click right there. Once that's done, we know that slide is together and that gun is not coming apart on its own, right? Just like so. So that's really it. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
I bet you can't do it with your eyes closed.
Really, you don't think I can? Hand me that eye mask right now.
I wonder if Aviva can do it with her eyes closed.
Hey. All right, so these are some of the other ways that I've seen people take apart Glocks. Some very interesting ones. Instead of gripping over here, they actually grip up in the front, and they do the same idea. They will pull down on those two levers right there, pull that trigger, and it comes right off. Another way that I've seen, it was a YouTube video. It was a little girl doing it, and she, of course, she didn't have enough strength to actually pull back the slide that way. So she actually utilized a table for that counterbalance there. Did the same thing, pulled on those levers. As she released, she could then pull the trigger, and it came right off. It's kind of a neat thing. So little extras, a little something you could try at home, see what works best for you. I personally love reaching over. Another one would be just pulling back a little bit this way, just like so, and it would come off that way. I do have high rear sights, so I'm able to do so. Some of you might not if you have standard Glock sights. And yeah, that's really it. There's a guy out there that can take it apart one-handed. I'm not that guy. All right, here we go. One-handed, giving it a try here. Check to make sure it's unloaded. We're going to pull the trigger and grip it like so. Whoa, look at that. Kind of nuts. Not really something that you should be doing every single time you take a Glock apart, though, but still fun. That was kind of exciting. I've never done that before. And let's see, everything has to line up. Kind of interesting that way. Slide back on. Make sure that's in. Whew. There we go. There it is. Full rack. Reset the trigger. Do a chamber check. There we go. Nothing in there. That was one-handed. That's cool.